The next morning, Alex woke up with a clear goal in mind: justice. They knew Karen wasn't going to admit she was wrong or apologize, so they decided to take the matter to the HOA, the very organization Karen loved to control. Surely, someone would see how unreasonable her behavior had been and step in to fix things. Fueled by determination, Alex typed out a detailed complaint, attaching the photos they'd taken of Karen's dog splashing around in the pool like it was some kind of personal water park. When Alex submitted the complaint, they felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this would finally put Karen in her place. But as the days passed, that hope slowly faded. The HOA board responded with vague promises to look into the matter, but nothing came of it. Meanwhile, Karen strutted around the neighborhood as if nothing had happened, even flashing smug smiles whenever she crossed paths with Alex. It became painfully obvious that Karen's influence within the HOA was too strong for anyone to challenge her, not even over something as blatant as using someone else's property without permission. Alex couldn't help but feel defeated. No one seemed willing to stand up to Karen, and the injustice of it all gnawed at them. How could the system meant to protect homeowners fail so completely? But instead of giving up, Alex found themselves growing more determined than ever. If no one else was going to hold Karen accountable, then Alex would have to do it themselves. Late one night, while scrolling through social media, Alex stumbled across a video of a foam party. The clip showed people dancing and laughing under neon lights, surrounded by massive clouds of fluffy white foam. At first, Alex chuckled at the absurdity of it. But then an idea began to form. What better way to send a message than to turn their backyard into the exact opposite of the serene oasis Karen thought she could invade? Inspiration struck like lightning. Alex envisioned filling the pool with so much foam that it would look ridiculous, like something out of a carnival or music festival. And why stop there? To really drive the point home, Alex decided to add another layer: fire alarms. Harmless smoke bombs strategically placed around the yard would trigger the house's alarm system during the event, creating chaos and drawing attention from the entire neighborhood. The plan wasn't just about revenge. It was about showing Karen what it felt like to deal with disruption on her own turf. Over the next few weeks, Alex threw themselves into preparations. They rented industrial foam machines capable of turning gallons of liquid into endless mounds of bubbly froth. Bright LED lights were ordered to transform the backyard into a glowing spectacle. A playlist of upbeat music was curated, ensuring the party would be loud enough to echo through the neighborhood. Invitations went out under the guise of a casual gathering, though Alex secretly hoped rumors would reach Karen before the big night. After all, half the fun would be watching her reaction when she realized what was happening. As the date approached, Alex felt a mix of excitement and nerves. This prank wasn't just about teaching Karen a lesson. It was about reclaiming control. For too long, Karen had acted like she owned the neighborhood, bending rules and stepping on others to suit her whims. Now, Alex was ready to flip the script and make sure everyone saw exactly who the real troublemaker was. The sun was setting over the quiet suburban neighborhood, casting a golden glow on rows of perfectly manicured lawns and freshly painted houses. It was the kind of place where everyone seemed to follow the rules. Rules enforced by the Homeowners Association, HOA. Of course, Alex had just moved into this picturesque community a few months ago, drawn to its charm and promise of peace. Their new house came with one feature they cherished above all else: a sparkling swimming pool in the backyard. Every evening after work, Alex would sit by the poolside, sipping coffee or reading a book, feeling grateful for their little slice of paradise. But no paradise stays untouched forever. One lazy afternoon, while working from home, Alex heard faint splashing sounds coming from outside. At first, they thought it might be the wind causing ripples in the water. Curious, Alex peeked through the window and froze. There in their pristine pool was Karen's golden retriever, happily paddling around like it owned the place, and standing nearby, arms crossed and smirking, as if she'd done nothing wrong, was Karen herself. Karen was something of a legend in the neighborhood, or rather, an infamous figure. She was the self-appointed queen bee of the HOA, always ready to lecture others about minor infractions, like mismatched curtains or lawn ornaments that were too quirky. Her reputation preceded her, entitled, bossy, and impossible to reason with. But even Alex couldn't have imagined she'd stoop so low as to let her dog swim in someone else's private pool without asking. Alex watched in disbelief as Karen casually leaned against the fence, scrolling through her phone while her dog created tiny waves in the crystal-clear water. Did she really think this was okay? The pool wasn't just any random body of water. It was Alex's personal property, carefully maintained with weekly cleanings and expensive chemicals. Now, thanks to Karen's antics, it looked more like a muddy swamp than a luxurious retreat. As the minutes ticked by, Alex felt anger bubbling inside them. How dare Karen barge into their space like this? What made her think she could treat other people's belongings as her own? Alex wanted to march outside and confront her right then and there, but they decided to wait until things cooled down. Confrontations with Karen were rarely straightforward. She had a way of twisting situations to make herself look like the victim. Instead, Alex snapped a few photos from the window as evidence, knowing full well they might need proof later. By the time Karen finally left, dragging her soggy dog behind her, Alex's mood had shifted from shock to determination. This wasn't just about the pool anymore. It was about principle. Nobody should be allowed to disrespect someone else's property like that, especially not someone who prided themselves on enforcing rules. Little did Karen know, her actions had set off a chain reaction, one that would lead to consequences far beyond what she could imagine. For now, Alex simply stared at the mess left behind, shaking their head. Cleaning up would take hours, but deep down, they already knew this wasn't going to end here. Something had to be done. The next evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, Alex spotted Karen walking her golden retriever down the street. It was the perfect opportunity to address what had happened. Taking a deep breath, Alex stepped outside, determined to keep their tone calm and polite despite the frustration bubbling inside them. "Hey, Karen," Alex called out, waving to get her attention. Karen turned, her usual air of superiority evident in the way she tilted her chin up slightly. Her dog tugged at its leash, sniffing around, as if it hadn't caused any trouble the day before. "Hi," Karen replied curtly, barely masking her annoyance at being interrupted during her walk. "I noticed something yesterday that I wanted to talk to you about." Alex began, choosing their words carefully. "I saw your dog swimming in my pool. I wasn't aware you planned to use it. Is everything okay?" Karen blinked, clearly caught off guard but unwilling to show it. For a moment, there was silence. Then, with a dismissive wave of her hand, she said, "Oh, don't worry about it. He just needed to cool off. Dogs love water. It's not a big deal." Alex felt their jaw tighten. Not a big deal. Their meticulously maintained pool, now contaminated by muddy paws, and who knows what else, was definitely a big deal. But they forced themselves to stay composed. "I understand dogs enjoy water, but this is private property. I didn't give permission for anyone, or anything, to use my pool." Karen rolled her eyes dramatically, as if Alex were making an unreasonable fuss over nothing. "Relax, it's just a pool. You can clean it, right? Besides, pools are meant to be enjoyed. Why be so selfish about it?" Selfish? Alex couldn't believe what they were hearing. They'd worked hard to create a peaceful home, and here was Karen accusing them of being stingy because they expected basic respect for their belongings. Still, Alex tried one more time. "It's not about cleaning or sharing. It's about asking first. If you'd let me know ahead of time, we could have figured something out. But showing up uninvited and using my property without permission isn't okay." Karen crossed her arms, her expression hardening. "You're blowing this way out of proportion. Honestly, Alex, you need to lighten up. People around here are trying to live harmoniously, but if you're going to make such a huge issue out of every little thing, maybe you're the one who doesn't belong." Her words stung, but Alex refused to back down. "Living harmoniously means respecting boundaries, Karen, and letting your dog swim in my pool without permission isn't respectful." Karen scoffed, clearly done with the conversation. "Fine, whatever, but don't come crying to the HOA when you alienate everyone in the neighborhood." With that, she yanked on her dog's leash and marched away, leaving Alex standing there, fuming. As Alex watched her disappear down the street, they realized this wasn't just about the pool anymore. Karen's arrogance and refusal to take responsibility were infuriating. She acted like she was above the rules, even though she was quick to enforce them on others. Something had to change, because if Alex didn't stand up now, who knew what Karen might do next? That night, as Alex sat by the pool, staring at the ripples left behind by Karen's dog, they made a decision. This wasn't going to slide. There had to be consequences, not just for the sake of the pool, but to send a message that no one could trample all over someone else's rights and expect to get away with it. Whatever happened next, Alex was ready. The day of the foam party finally arrived, and Alex buzzed with nervous energy. They had spent weeks planning every detail, making sure everything would go off without a hitch. By late afternoon, the backyard was transformed into a scene straight out of a festival brochure. The once pristine pool was surrounded by towering speakers, colorful LED lights, and industrial foam machines ready to unleash their bubbly magic. It looked chaotic yet thrilling, a far cry from the peaceful oasis Karen had invaded with her dog. As guests began arriving, Alex greeted them warmly, offering drinks and snacks while explaining the theme of the evening: fun without limits. Neighbors trickled in, curious about the unusual gathering. Some came purely out of curiosity, others because they'd heard whispers about the spectacle Alex was hosting. Word had spread quickly through the neighborhood, and though no one mentioned Karen directly, there was an unspoken understanding that this wasn't just any ordinary party. By sunset, the backyard was alive with energy. Music pulsed through the air as vibrant lights danced across the yard, casting shadows on the fence. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Alex flipped the switch on the foam machines. Within seconds, thick clouds of fluffy white foam erupted from the machines, spilling into the pool and spreading across the ground like snowdrifts. Guests squealed with delight, jumping into the frothy mess or tossing handfuls of foam at each other. Laughter filled the air as people let loose, forgetting their worries and embracing the absurdity of it all. Alex watched from the sidelines, a satisfied grin spreading across their face. This was exactly what they'd envisioned, a wild, unforgettable event that turned their backyard into a playground. But the best part was yet to come. Hidden among the decorations were harmless smoke bombs, rigged to activate at just the right moment. When the first puff of fake smoke curled into the air, triggering the house's fire alarms, Alex couldn't help but chuckle. The piercing wail of the alarms cut through the music, causing everyone to pause mid-dance. For a brief moment, confusion rippled through the crowd. Was something actually wrong? Before anyone could panic, Alex stepped forward, holding up their hands. "Don't worry," they shouted over the noise. "It's all part of the show." Relieved laughter broke out as the guests returned to the festivities, now even more amused by the added drama. Foam continued to spray everywhere, coating clothes, hair, and shoes in sticky bubbles. The lights flickered in time with the pulsing beat of the music, creating an almost surreal atmosphere. Even those who hadn't planned to stay long found themselves caught up in the excitement, snapping photos and videos to share online. Unbeknownst to most of the attendees, Alex kept glancing toward the edge of the property, half expecting Karen to storm in at any moment. Sure enough, it didn't take long. Just as the foam reached its peak, towering mounds spilling over the sides of the pool, a familiar figure appeared at the gate. Karen stood frozen, her mouth agape, as she took in the chaotic scene before her. Her designer dress, and perfectly styled hair stuck out like a sore thumb amidst the neon lights and swirling foam. For a split second, Alex felt a pang of guilt, but only for a second. Watching Karen's horrified expression, they knew this was worth every ounce of effort. The woman who thought she could do whatever she wanted, whenever she wanted, was finally getting a taste of her own medicine. And Alex couldn't wait to see how she'd react when things got even crazier. Karen stood at the edge of the property, her face a mix of shock and fury, as she took in the chaotic scene before her. The backyard was unrecognizable. A swirling sea of foam, neon lights flashing like a rave, and music so loud it vibrated through the ground. Her perfectly manicured eyebrows knitted together in disbelief as she watched neighbors laughing, dancing, and throwing handfuls of foam at each other. It was utter chaos, and Karen hated every second of it. "What is going on here?" she shouted, trying to make herself heard over the din. But no one paid attention to her. If anything, her outburst only added to the absurdity of the moment. One guest turned toward her, foam dripping from their hair, and grinned mischievously before tossing a clump of bubbles in her direction. Karen gasped, swatting at the foam as if it were toxic waste, but it stuck stubbornly to her sleeve. Alex, who had been observing from the sidelines, decided it was time to step in. Approaching Karen with a calm smile, they said, "Hey, Karen, glad you could make it. Looks like we're having quite the party." "Huh. This isn't a party. This is a disaster," Karen snapped, her voice rising above the music. "Do you have any idea how disruptive this is? The noise, the mess, the asterisk foam asterisk everywhere. This violates every HOA rule about neighborhood conduct." Alex tilted their head innocently. "Oh, really? Funny. I don't remember anyone caring about rules when your dog decided to use my pool as his personal bathtub." Karen's cheeks flushed red, whether from embarrassment or anger, it was hard to tell. "That's completely different," she sputtered. "My dog needed to cool off. It was harmless." "Harmless?" Alex echoed, raising an eyebrow. "You mean harmless like ignoring boundaries, or harmless like treating someone else's property like it's yours for the taking?" Karen opened her mouth to argue but was cut off by another round of blaring fire alarms. The smoke bombs Alex had rigged earlier kicked into full gear, releasing harmless puffs of fake smoke that drifted lazily across the yard. Lights flashed inside the house, adding to the surreal spectacle. Guests cheered and laughed, unfazed by the commotion. It was all part of the show. But Karen looked like she might explode. "This is ridiculous," she shrieked, waving her arms dramatically. "I'm calling the HOA right now. You can't just throw a party like this without consequences." Before Alex could respond, one of the foam machines malfunctioned slightly, spraying a cascade of bubbly froth directly onto Karen. She let out a strangled yelp as the foam coated her dress, shoes, and even her carefully styled hair. A few guests nearby burst into laughter, pulling out their phones to capture the moment. Someone shouted, "Smile, Karen. You're part of the fun now." Karen's expression shifted from outrage to pure mortification. She frantically brushed at the foam, but it clung stubbornly to her clothes, leaving streaks of white everywhere. Her once immaculate appearance was ruined, and there was nothing she could do about it. For the first time in years, Karen found herself utterly powerless. As the minutes ticked by, more neighbors gathered near the gate, drawn by the noise and flashing lights. Some chuckled openly at Karen's predicament, while others filmed the spectacle on their phones. Word spread quickly throughout the community. Karen, the self-proclaimed enforcer of order, was standing ankle-deep in foam, looking absolutely ridiculous. Alex crossed their arms, watching Karen squirm under the weight of her own hypocrisy. They didn't say another word. They didn't need to. The message was clear. Actions have consequences. And tonight, karma had come knocking. As Karen finally stormed off, muttering threats under her breath, Alex couldn't help but smile. The evening wasn't just entertaining. It was justice served in the most creative way possible. And judging by the looks on everyone else's faces, they weren't the only ones enjoying the show. The next morning, the neighborhood buzzed with chatter about the foam party. Neighbors who hadn't attended were eager to hear every detail, while those who had been there couldn't stop talking about it. Phones were flooded with messages, and social media feeds lit up with photos and videos of the wild event. The hashtags #Foamgate and #KarenGotServed began trending locally, turning what had started as a private prank into a full-blown spectacle. Karen, however, was nowhere to be seen. She stayed holed up in her house, blinds drawn, clearly humiliated by the previous night's events. But her absence didn't stop people from speculating or laughing. Video clips of her standing in the foam-covered yard, dripping with bubbles and shouting over the music, circulated widely. One clip in particular went viral. Karen yelling about HOA rules while being pelted with foam, her face a mix of disbelief and outrage. The caption read, "When you try to enforce rules but end up covered in karma." Despite her embarrassment, Karen wasn't about to let things slide. Later that afternoon, she marched down to the HOA office, determined to file a formal complaint against Alex for disturbing the peace and violating neighborhood guidelines. Armed with printed screenshots of the foam party and a long list of grievances, she demanded immediate action. "This is unacceptable," she declared to the board members. "Alex deliberately caused chaos in our community, and they need to be held accountable." But much to Karen's dismay, the HOA board didn't jump to her defense this time. Instead, they exchanged uneasy glances, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. It turned out that someone, anonymous of course, had sent them security camera footage showing Karen letting her dog swim in Alex's pool without permission. The video left little room for interpretation. Karen was the one who had crossed the line first. Worse still, the clip had also leaked online, drawing even more attention to the feud. Comments flooded in calling Karen entitled, hypocritical, and worse. For the first time in years, Karen found herself on the receiving end of criticism, not just from her neighbors, but from the entire community. People who had once tolerated her bossy behavior now openly mocked her. Some even admitted they were relieved to see her taken down a peg or two. Her influence within the HOA crumbled almost overnight. Board members distanced themselves from her, unwilling to associate with someone whose reputation had become so tarnished. When the board ultimately dismissed her complaint against Alex, citing insufficient evidence and pointing out her own misconduct, Karen stormed out of the meeting in tears. Back at home, Karen tried to salvage what was left of her dignity. She scrubbed her house spotless, avoided eye contact with neighbors, and deleted her social media accounts after being bombarded with mocking comments. Yet no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't escape the fallout. Every time she stepped outside, whispers followed her. Children pointed and giggled, while adults exchanged knowing looks. The woman who had once ruled the neighborhood with an iron fist was now its laughingstock. Meanwhile, Alex enjoyed a newfound sense of peace and respect. Neighbors who had previously kept their distance began stopping by to chat, thanking them for standing up to Karen. Many admitted they'd been too intimidated to confront her before but admired Alex's boldness. Even the HOA board reached out to express gratitude for bringing attention to Karen's hypocrisy, though they stopped short of officially condemning her. As days turned into weeks, life in the neighborhood slowly returned to normal, but not quite the same normal as before. With Karen stripped of her power and too embarrassed to meddle in others' affairs, the community felt lighter, freer. People decorated their lawns however they pleased, hosted gatherings without fear of judgment, and generally lived more harmoniously. And at the center of it all was Alex, quietly enjoying their backyard oasis, knowing they had sparked a change that benefited everyone. Still, Alex couldn't help but smile whenever they thought about the foam party. What had started as a simple act of retaliation had grown into something much bigger, a lesson in accountability, fairness, and the importance of standing up for oneself. Karma, it seemed, really did have a sense of humor. Weeks had passed since the infamous foam party, and the neighborhood was beginning to feel like a different place altogether. The once oppressive presence of Karen had faded into the background, leaving behind a sense of calm that many residents hadn't realized they'd been missing. Alex sat by their pool one evening, sipping a cold drink and watching the last rays of sunlight dance on the water's surface. The pool was cleaner than ever, free from muddy paw prints or unwanted guests. It was exactly how Alex had always imagined it, peaceful, serene, and entirely theirs. But the changes went beyond just Alex's backyard. The entire community seemed lighter, friendlier even. Neighbors who had previously kept to themselves now waved hello as they passed by. Lawn ornaments that Karen would have deemed too tacky began popping up in yards again. Colorful flamingos, quirky garden gnomes, and wind chimes that chimed softly in the breeze. Even the HOA meetings felt less tense, with board members actively encouraging input from homeowners instead of imposing strict rules. For the first time in years, people were living without fear of Karen's judgmental glare or her threats of fines for minor infractions. Karen herself remained largely out of sight, retreating into a quiet existence. Rumor had it she was considering moving out of the neighborhood altogether, unable to bear the whispers and sideways glances whenever she ventured outside. Whether true or not, her absence was palpable and welcome. Without her constant meddling, the community thrived in ways no one had expected. People organized block parties, shared gardening tips, and even started a neighborhood book club. The transformation was remarkable, and Alex couldn't help but feel proud of the role they'd played in sparking it. One evening, as Alex lounged by the pool, a neighbor named Susan stopped by with a plate of homemade cookies. "Just wanted to say thanks," she said with a warm smile. "You stood up to Karen when none of us had the courage to do it ourselves. We owe you a lot." Alex laughed lightly, brushing off the praise. "I didn't do anything special. I just wanted my space respected. Turns out, so did everyone else." Susan nodded thoughtfully. "Still, it takes guts to stand up to someone like her. You showed us that we don't have to put up with bad behavior just because it comes from someone with power." That party, it was genius. As Susan walked away, Alex reflected on her words. They hadn't set out to become some kind of neighborhood hero, but looking back, maybe that's exactly what had happened. By refusing to let Karen trample over their rights, Alex had inspired others to reclaim theirs too. The foam party wasn't just about revenge. It was about sending a message. Respect mattered, boundaries mattered, and no one was above accountability. That night, as Alex drifted off to sleep, they thought about how far things had come. Their new home, which had once felt invaded and disrespected, now felt like a sanctuary, a place where they could truly relax and enjoy life. And while the memory of Karen's soggy dog and foam-covered meltdown still brought a chuckle, Alex knew the real victory wasn't in humiliating her. It was in creating a neighborhood where kindness and fairness outweighed entitlement and control. The next morning, Alex woke up early and decided to take a swim in the pool. As they floated on their back, staring up at the clear blue sky, they felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Life in the suburbs wasn't perfect, no place ever was, but it was close enough. The chaos of the past few weeks had given way to harmony, and Alex finally felt at home. Sometimes justice comes in unexpected forms. For Alex, it came wrapped in bubbles, flashing lights, and a little bit of harmless chaos. And if anyone ever doubted the power of standing up for oneself, all they had to do was look around the neighborhood. Karma, after all, loved a good foam party.